I remember seeing the protests that flooded the streets of the U.S. after the series of inexplicable murders of black people. After the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, preceded by so many black people that I would have to spend my full TED Talk time naming them all. The people had had enough, and they took to the streets, on the radio, in print, and the people, they collectively chanted, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. But it wasn't just black people chanting. We were joined by other races and nationalities. Even some corporations got in on the declaration by throwing up Black Lives Matter banners on their website. I was pleased to see the scene, but what took me by surprise was the many government entities and officials who stood up and pledged their allegiance to the Black Lives Matter. I was shocked. Across the country for decades, we've consistently seen headlines like, Philly parks are underfunded, what will more cuts do? New York City park budgets cuts were worse than the decades of underinvestment. Lake City cut $700,000 in funding from Parks and Recreation. Parks and Recreation lacked $2.4 million in funding, potentially face more cuts. According to the NRPA, National Parks and Recreation Association, the total expenditures on Parks and Recreation rose from approximately $35.5 billion in 2000 to $40.7 billion in 2008, before falling to $32.5 billion in 2013. And in the 2021 budget, 31% of the park departments cut their budget even further. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. If Black lives really matter, will we be cutting already underfunded parks and recreation budgets, especially when we know the positive impact of recreational programs in poor black communities? Here's what we know about investments in park and recreation. A 10-year study of more than 3,000 children living in 12 communities of Southern California found that those who live closer to a park had much lower obesity rates at age 18 than those comparable to that live further away. Some scholars say parks prevent violence. When vacant lots and deteriorating urban spaces are transformed into more appealing, useful places for residents, violence and crime typically decline in the immediate vicinity. So we know the impact of investing in parks and recreation. Study after study show the benefits of recreational programs in poor black communities, but officials get on TV and say Black Lives Matter while cutting very programs that will preserve young black lives. Year after year, we see that recreation are the very services targeted for the deepest and most dramatic cuts when the economic situation necessitates government belt-tightening. So again, if Black Lives Matter, will we be cutting parks and recreation services? And I want to pause for a second and call it what it really is. I'm sure everyone in here uses a park from time to time, because everyone loves a good park. But the parks I'm talking about are the parks that change the lives of children. The parks where an investment in programs equal a reduction in crime and gang activity. We can pay for computers or pay for cops. Either way, we're gonna pay. So I wanna be clear. When I'm talking about investing in parks and recreations, I'm talking about investing in our young black youth, trying to save them from the pitfalls of the streets. I'm giving you examples of across the nation, but let's get into our own backyard, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. There was a time in the mid to late 1990s when Atlanta was recognized as having one of the best recreational departments in the United States. However, this investment in parks and recreation was not received by all and earned negative press for political leaders at the time. As a result, future politicians worked to distance themselves from the Parks and Recreation's investment initiative. Those initiatives that invested in keeping black inner city youth active to win elections was no longer sexy enough to win elections. After the early 2000s, we saw it take a turn here in Atlanta. They closed 70% of the recreation centers and delayed the opening of swimming pools to accommodate budget deficits. Black children were stripped of sports, activities, programming, and things to do. And as my grandmother once said, an idle mind was the devil's playground. Instead of saying we're taking away recreation, the very thing we know that these youth depended on, they sold us the story of creating and investing in green spaces. What they want us to believe is that green space is the equivalent of parks and recreation, but I say that our inner city youth were sacrificed for green spaces, and they put an emphasis in places over people. What that investment did was take the recreations out of park and recreation. Recreation was the part that kept kids off the street, that gave our youth an outlet, that provided tutoring, mentoring, role models, safe spaces, and opportunities. Recreations received major cutbacks, and parks were elevated, and now we have walking trails, dog parks, open spaces, but no programming. And while investment in elevating today, we are asking the question, Where did this youth crime come from? Why do we have water boys at all the intersections? But at Black Lives Matter, will we have more dog parks than youth park programs? At a time when we needed mentorship and leadership programs, our children were placed on the back burner. And we began to see a rise in gangs. This is when the smash and grab became popular, and the city immediately had to quadruple the number of police officers on the gang task force unit. Curfews had to be implemented, and those that escaped the inner city could. Those that could not was left with nothing. I'm not here to complain. I'm here to try to do my best and be a solution and want to spread the word. With this platform, I want to elevate the cause of investing in the hood and putting recreation back into parks and recreations. Today, I run a youth basketball program based in Atlanta called the Atlanta Celtics. Have you heard the phrase, be the change that you want to see? I'm heading an organization that I needed when I was a youth in this inner city. I wish I could say I took the right path all the time, but I cannot. I don't portray myself to be a saint, but that's where my passion to save our youth derives from. I got into trouble when I was young, went the wrong way, and I could very well be a statistic. But you know why I stand here instead of in a prison or a grave? It was two things to help shape and mold me. One, I had a praying grandmother, and the other was recreations. When I embarked on this journey, I started small, just doing something to give back to the hood. It was at John F. Kennedy where me and some more guys from my neighborhood worked to revitalize the youth football program and pulled in every kid from the surrounding area to come and play to keep them off the streets. Because there were no funding, we purchased our own 15-passenger van to provide transportation. We purchased all of their equipment, uniforms. We paid their fees for participation. We did this as a community because it was ours. At the time, these kids were coming from high-risk areas like the Bluff, Simpson Road, Herndon Homes, etc. Since others had divested their funds, we felt it was up to us to make a difference in our community. After the shutdown of the City of Atlanta recreation centers, I focused my attention on the Celtics, which is an AAU program that had the same focus of helping kids. My mentor headed the Celtics, and after he passed away, his co-founder and the president of the program appointed me as the general manager to lead the charge, and I stepped in to keep it going. Today, we are one of, if not the largest program in the Southeast, and sponsored by Adidas as their flagship program for the past 20 years. We've had over 20 plus guys make it to the NBA and over 500 to receive scholarships to colleges. These stats show what we can do. Thank you. These stats show what we can do when we invest in recreations in our communities. We are grateful for corporate sponsorships, but our local governments should be more invested in seeing crime reduced, more kids go to college, and less teen pregnancy than CEOs of a company. Now here's the real impact. Not only does recreations impact youth, but it expands to an entire community. Last year, during the pandemic, we organized an event called Unity in the Community, which was based on the west side of Atlanta, on Bankhead. During the event, we were able to secure free COVID testing for everyone. This was at a time when COVID testing was scarce and hard to come by. Provided over 500 families with groceries, another 250 hot meals of plant-based burgers based to kind of like promote healthy eating habits. We coordinated with the NPU to connect the elderly community members with the youth and got everyone working together. We had voter restoration to get convicted felons who finally able to vote again, they were able to vote. Voter registration, life coaching, mental health counselors, and gaming activities for kids. If Black Lives Matter, we would have the support of city leaders. If Black Lives Matter, government officials would be beating down the doors of inner city recreation centers to give them more funding. If Black Lives Matter, I would not have to deliver this talk. But the truth is, Black lives do matter. Because Black Lives Matter, I dedicated this talk to the cause of educating of the defunding of recreational programs. Because Black Lives Matter, I want federal, state, and local governments to reinvest in recreations in the hood. Because Black Lives Matter, I have done and will continue to do the work that I do. Because if Black lives don't matter to anyone else, I'm a product of this inner city of Atlanta. The west side, Simpson Road, Zone 1 to be exact, and they damn sure matter to me. Thank you.